Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Tuesday. I hope the day is going well wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. Thank you as always for joining me. I really do appreciate it. Just before we get stuck into today's show, a little note that I'm recording Inside Arsenal Extra Time with James Benge a little bit later on today. So as always, if you want to get involved in that show, if you want to ask us some questions or some comments that you want us to discuss, then get down below into the comments here to this video. Start it with Extra Time and then give us your question, your comment. And as always, we'll pull some of them together and get them included in today's show. Right, we've got plenty to talk about today. We've got Viktor Gyokeres to talk about. He's now officially, well, not threatened, officially informed Sporting that he will not be going back for pre-season training, according to reports in Portugal. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Gabriel Hato, Alexander Zinchenko, Fabio Vieira. Got loads and loads of questions. So much reaction. Thank you, everyone, for getting in touch and giving me your thoughts on this. By the way, we were talking about yesterday in the left wing situation and the links between Gabriel Martinelli and Bayern Munich. So much reaction from you guys on Martinelli that I've pulled together as much as I can. And I'm going to include that in the show later on today. Loads of support for Martinelli, I have to say, in the comments, which I'm really happy about because I kind of feel like Martinelli's a bit underrated by some of the Arsenal fan base. And I'm surprised at the level of the comments of people saying how much they do not want to sell Gabriel Martinelli this summer. So I'm going to pull some of those together. Well, I have pulled some of those together, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later on in the show. But let's start with Gyokeres, who is here. Fabrizio Romano this morning reporting, backing up reports that have come out from Portugal that Gyokeres does not want to play for the club again. And Romano's tweeted, Gyokeres has already personally informed Sporting President Varandas about his decision to leave. No intention to play for the club anymore. Gyokeres wants a new chapter. He feels heartbroken after his exit pact has not been adhered to and is not expected to return to training, as Abola reports. So big developments on the Gyokeres stuff. Obviously, it's been increasingly tortuous exit or attempt at an exit between Gyokeres and Sporting. It has become very, very messy. And, you know, if Gyokeres has now, as reports in Portugal suggested, basically informed Sporting that he will not be returning, will not be turning up for pre-season training, I mean, that's as sort of big as a move as you can potentially get in a standoff like that. I think it's interesting how that's going to be perceived, because you can perceive it sort of two ways, can't you? On one hand, some Arsenal fans will look at this, and I've seen it already, the sort of suggestions, oh, he really wants to play for us. You know, that's great. Sesko apparently is demanding this, demanding that. Again, I'm not sure about that Sesko stuff. I take that all with a pinch of salt. But a lot of Arsenal fans are looking at how desperate Gyokeres seems to be to come to the club as a really, really good point. And they'll look at this and think, again, this is him trying to force his move through for Arsenal. This is a player who really wants to really come to us. But I suppose you can also look at it at the point of, is this a bit of a red flag about a player basically going on strike because he's not getting his way? That's never really seen as a good thing. Obviously, he feels and his people feel that promises that have been made to them have been absolutely broken by a club that he's gone to and done so well at for the last 2 years, helped them win 2 titles in a row, scored so many goals for them, and now he feels like those promises that they believe were made need to be kept and allow him to make his move. And the fact that those promises aren't being kept by their outlook, they obviously are very, very unhappy with that. But even so, a player sort of basically going on strike is never a very good look. It's never perceived very well from the rest of the footballing community. Would that be something that Arsenal themselves are looking at and thinking, oh, this is a bit of a worry? Or will they be looking at it themselves and thinking, this is good, this might be able to allow us to get him at a relatively cheap price? Love to get your thoughts on it. How do you view this? Do you look at this as a good thing, or are you slightly worried about how Gyokeres and his people are sort of going about trying to get themselves out of Sporting? Love to get your thoughts on it. I think it'd be very interesting to see just how sort of split opinion would be on this. Right, moving on to a little sort of transfer roundup of what's been said in the last 24 hours or so. We've had reports that Gerald Hato's agent is in London talking about a possible move to Arsenal. We know that Arsenal are interested in Hato. That interest backdates about 18 months now. Chelsea apparently are interested in him as well. Fresh reports coming out yesterday that Gerald Hato and Arsenal talks are ramping up between them ahead of potential sort of talks with Ajax to try and get this deal done. His agent is said to be in London to hold more talks with Arsenal now. about getting it done. Interesting reports. Obviously, I mean, I think he's a really talented player, Joel Hato, no doubt about that. I think it'd be very, very interesting to see if he does come in, if that means someone goes out. I mean, we're going to talk about Alexander Zinchenko at the moment. If Zinchenko goes out, that certainly opens up a space in the squad for someone like Hato. He's versatile, which we know Mikel Arteta loves. Well, we know Mikel Arteta likes his player anyway. You know, he features very high up in the recruitment list of Arsenal and has done for a long, long time. He wouldn't come cheap this summer, but I think he would certainly be a good signing for Arsenal. I've had a few comments and questions, which I'll get to at some point about Hato. But I mean, I think it certainly ties into Zinchenko. We spoke about it yesterday. Someone, I can't remember the name of the person who wrote in and sent in a message saying, if Hato comes in, we've still got kind of 2 players for each position in defence, and that's what we need, 8 players in defence. And if Zinchenko goes, that certainly does open up a spot. Whether Kivior and Hato would be able to get enough minutes between them, should they both be at the club next season, certainly up for debate. We'll wait and see. But if Zinchenko goes, then there is definitely a space in the squad where Hato could come in and fill that space. And Zinchenko, we know that AC Milan are interested in Zinchenko. The issue was and is Zinchenko's wages. They're very, very high. For a club like Milan, and Milan don't really want to pay those Arsenal type wages, which is why I've always felt that I don't think it's an absolute foregone conclusion that Zinchenko goes this summer. He's only got a year left in his deal. He might see out that very good, lucrative deal and then wait until he's a free agent in the summer where he can get nice signing on fees. Obviously, he could take lower wages somewhere else, but I don't think he would necessarily be in a rush to go this summer. But we've now seen reports that Fulham are believed to be in for Zinchenko, which, unlike Milan, obviously Premier League wages, don't have to leave London. Maybe that would be a more attractive proposition. I've seen reports of 10 million. I don't think that's enough for Zinchenko, I have to say. I'm often accused of undervaluing Arsenal players by you guys whenever I put values on players. But I don't think 10 million is enough for someone like Zinchenko. I still think he's a very good player. As I've said before, I think he was underused by Mikel Arteta last season. Experienced player, international, still does it for his country internationally. Can play in multiple positions, not old by any means yet. I just feel 10 million isn't enough. I know he's on big wages, and any buying club might look at that and use that as a sort of negotiation tactic with Arsenal to try and bring the price down a little bit. But certainly if you're selling to a Premier League club, say Fulham do really sort of come in for Zinchenko, I don't think 10 million is enough. I think 15 million is a minimum of what you should be getting for someone like Zinchenko, but potentially even sort of raising that up towards closer to the 20 million mark, even with a year left on his contract. But we'll see if anything sort of comes with that reported interest, certainly from Fulham in Zinchenko. We know Fulham are looking at Reece Nelson as well. And if he goes, then going back to Joel Hato, I think there's definitely a spot there for him, even if Kivior stays. So we'll wait and see what happens on that. But that's the sort of latest transfers that we've been sort of talking about in the last 24 hours when it comes to Arsenal. It all seems to sort of revolve around the left-back situation. And going into left-backs, Lewis-Skelly has signed his new Arsenal contract. Yesterday, he had his sort of photo shoot, all that sort of stuff done. So we're basically waiting for an announcement. And I know lots of people are, when are we going to announce it? And I have no idea on that. And it's impossible. You can't predict with Arsenal because, you know, I've been doing this job an awful long time, and you know, there'll be, you sort of get word that we've got an announcement coming at this time, so get ready to put anything out. You know, Arsenal, they will never brief about stuff, but the only time they will give you a heads up sometimes is when there's a sort of a transfer announcement happening. You know, transfer everyone's known about for a long, long time. Everyone knows the person's been over for the medical, and then just to give people a heads up to be able to prepare their sort of copy, they'll say, all right, we're going to do this at like 4 o'clock, something like that, for the actual announcement. But so many times that has been pushed back and changed at the last minute. Even when you're about half an hour away and you're expecting it's definitely happening, suddenly it just won't happen and you'll have to wait. So it's impossible to predict when this announcement will come for Lewis-Skelly, but it is done. He has signed his new contract, and that's just fantastic news. Absolutely fantastic news. As I reported last week, it was all agreed, just waiting to be done and sort of finalised, and then the announcement will come. And we'll wait and see. So good news. We've had Zubimendi in the building doing all his photos and all that sort of stuff last week. We've now had Lewis-Skelly doing that. Kepa, that should happen at some point this week. James Gunner blog, obviously James over at The Athletic, reporting that Kepa's due in at London Colney this week to sign his to finalise his transfer ahead of that £5 million move from Chelsea. Another really good piece of business for me. So lots of things are happening. It's not a case of nothing's happening. It's just a case of waiting for the official announcements at the moment. And sometimes those announcements can last as long. Waiting for those announcements can last as long as the actual negotiations themselves. But fantastic news on Miles Lewis-Skelly. Right, before we get onto your Gabriel Martinelli reaction, just rounding up the only bit of interest really from Arsenal at the Club World Cup, that is now officially over because Porto have gone out. I think it was a 4-4 draw yesterday with El Ahly. Amazing game, actually. Porto equalising 4 times in that game. Fabio Vieira started. I think he played about 70-odd minutes, got an assist, swung in a corner that led to the 3rd goal. I think it was the header that made it 3-3. But that's it. So Porto are out, and that means that Fabio Vieira's loan spell at Porto is now officially over. He'll be off on holiday, then he'll come back to Arsenal, and then they're going to have to decide what happens when it comes to Fabio Vieira. I think the idea will be that he moves this summer. I think he'll want that. I think Arsenal want that. You know, whether we can actually do that, we'll have to wait and see. It might end up having to be another loan when it comes to Fabio Vieira. But this current loan spell now is over with Porto exiting the Club World Cup. Right, moving on to some questions and comments from you guys now. Sammy's got in touch there saying, hi, Charles, great content as always. Been watching for about a year now. You're my go-to for authentic Arsenal news. Thank you very much, Sammy. Appreciate that. You say, about the left wing, why isn't anyone talking about Antoine Semenyo? Striking was our issue last season, and the boy strikes with both feet, takes shots more often, is strong, works hard, and I think he'll be way cheaper than Rodrigo. Plus, he might even offer just as much, if not more, based on his numbers. Is it his fee or something else? Do clarify. I can't clarify. Unfortunately, Sammy, I agree. I think Semenyo is a fantastic option when it comes to Arsenal, or possible option when it comes to Arsenal. Versatile, as you said. That ball striking can be so clean with him, and that's something Arsenal lack, no doubt about it. Premier League proven, Arsenal fan as well. So, yeah, I can't clarify why we're not hearing much about it. Obviously, it just feels at the moment that he's not really a player Arsenal are looking at. Maybe that will change. Still got a lot of time left in the transfer window. I've heard whispers of Spurs with Semenyo, which I absolutely hope is not true. I think the reports I saw about Spurs were that I think they were informed by Bournemouth that they wanted sort of 60 or 70 million for Semenyo, and maybe that's what has put up clubs like Arsenal off from at the moment, really sort of making a bold move for him. But excellent player, exciting player, no doubt about that. But yeah, I can't really clarify, unfortunately, Sammy, exactly why we're not hearing more when it comes to Arsenal and him. Okay, Martinelli now. Look, 1, 2. I've got 3 pages of Martinelli to go through here because, as I said, the reaction was absolutely massive yesterday to what we were talking about and Bayern being interested in him. And I asked the question, what would you guys do when it comes to Gabriel Martinelli? And so I was really, really surprised at just how many people were absolutely very forcefully as well saying, why would we sell Gabriel Martinelli? It doesn't make any sense. There was obviously some who were for it, but I was surprised at how many were against the idea. Jude has got in touch, says, I'm not in support of Martinelli leaving. Guys, 23-year-old, for Christ's sake. Better still get Rodrigo. Martinelli can play in Saka's position at times. And the young guy does a lot of defence. For me, Martinelli stays, period. Momo says Martinelli is at a huge disadvantage on the left wing position. Our left fullbacks don't tend to overlap. Our left eights don't link up in the attack in the half space as much. And Martinelli is asked to sacrifice so much on defence. And he is human, so physically it's going to affect him. We, as fans, just expect him to take on 2 players by himself when the opposing team sit back and double up on the edges. It's unrealistic. Arteta has shifted it to a slower build-up, and Martinelli performs much better in the open space where we can be more direct. All of these things have to be favoured into our judgment of Martinelli's performance. He's not perfect, I agree. Any player that comes in will have to deal with these issues as well, and we will judge them in the same way. Pete says, seems like a dumb decision to get rid of Gabby Martinelli. We need depth. If we bring in another left winger and lose him, we have to go back to the market for another, which seems like a waste of money when Gabby is on his game. He is unstoppable. Tom now says, I don't think there are many left wingers out there that outperform Martinelli to extent, which is a massive upgrade. The same people that are saying Rodrigo isn't an upgrade are the same people who want Nico Williams, who has less output, I believe. I, for one, would absolutely welcome Rodrigo think it'd give a real boost to the squad, a superstar signing to give the fans a buzz as well. Lander says, absolutely amazing how Martinelli stretches defences. His value will only be recognised when he leaves. You can only see the value when we have a great striker. Macania says, the fact that a club of Bayern's magnitude want Martinelli simply tells you that we can't sell him. Brian says the problem with Martinelli is that he definitely has a quality in terms of speed and technique. His problem is with decision making. It's so poor. He has not really improved in the last 2 or 3 seasons. That Jack Rice says we can't get rid of Martinelli. He needs to be the floor we build on. We can't sell players and then complain about depth. It makes no sense. Then finally, 2 here. One from Son of a Biscuits, who says, I think Martinelli would be an acceptable squad player, but if we need to raise funds for Rodrigo, then I would sacrifice him. Martinelli, for me, is the same as Zinchenko and Jesus. They took us to the next level in Arteta's early years, but are not good enough to start now, and we're challenging for top prize constantly. The business then says, if we even have a semblance of sense as a club, there's no way we should sell Martinelli unless we absolutely need to. And even then, not for anything less than 70 million. And we'd need to buy 2 wingers in that case. He goes on to talk about Martinelli feeling like an academy boy, loves the badge and all that sort of stuff. So many of you get in touch. Thank you very much for that. Obviously, some different opinions then, but definitely loads and loads really wanted Martinelli to stay. I'm in that boat, I have to say. I said it yesterday. I would not be rushing out to sell Martinelli. It wouldn't make any sense. I think that sort of figure, who was it? It was the business there saying £70 million. I think it would have to be around that for me to even want Arsenal to entertain a discussion about selling Martinelli. Keep Martinelli, keep Trossard, bring in another left winger. That's what we need. We need squad depth. We need attacking options that Mikel Arteta trusts and will use. He will use Martinelli, he will use Trossard, and he will use another left winger. We know what happens if Arteta doesn't trust a player, he won't use them. So we've got 2 players that we know he trusts. So bring in another one, and then suddenly there's players on the bench that he'll turn to that you can rotate each week and not drive players into the grounds because Mikel's scared to use a player. We know he will use Martinelli and Trossard. So why would you sell those players? I just think last season taught us that we need more strength when it comes to forwards. 2 more attackers into this mixture that we've got at the moment is perfect for me. Another striker, another winger. You don't need to get rid of anyone. Maybe you need to get rid of Jesus next summer when he's come back from injury. And, maybe at that stage, yes, someone like Jesus can go. But this summer, I just don't see the need to sell anyone unless you get a mad bid coming for Martinelli. And then probably you have to consider it. But I don't see anyone putting that sort of figure down for someone like Martinelli at the moment. So no, not for me. I would be keeping him. A couple more here. This is both about Eze, actually. Richie Rich has got in touch on the Inside Arsenal Patreon chat. He says, with the attention of Rodrigo, Williams, Gordon, etc., it seems that everyone has forgotten about Eze. Who would be my first choice? I'm sure Arsenal must have had at least spoken to his representatives. It's suspiciously quiet on that front. Have you heard any rumblings about Eze, Charles? And Jason has got in touch on the Discord, which is you get access to if you're an Inside Arsenal member. He says, hey, Charles, with Bayern's Martinelli interest, how would you feel about selling him for 70 million and then taking that money to meet as a buyout clause for the sake of squad building? We could also buy someone like El Canous for numbers on the wing. I'd hate to see Martinelli go because he does so much for the team, but it's hard not to get excited about Eze starting on the left. What are your thoughts? Everyone knows my thoughts on Eze. I would love him at Arsenal. I hate the fact that I'm hearing reports now that Tottenham are moving for Eze and that they've got encouragement from him over that. I don't want that. I really do. It was like last season when Chelsea suddenly were in for Elise. I was dreading Elise going there because he's a player I really like. I was very happy when he ended up at Bayern. I hate to see Eze at Spurs. In answer to these questions, have I heard any rumblings? Rich, no, I have to say I haven't heard any rumblings, unfortunately, on Arsenal and Eze. I wish I had. And Jason, in terms of yours, then I'd sign Eze, but I wouldn't get rid of Martinelli. That's kind of what I was just saying a minute ago. Bring Eze in, hit that buyout, but keep up Martinelli. And then you've got options. You can play Eze on the left. You can play him in the left 8 role. You've got Martinelli already on the left. You've got Trossard there as well. Suddenly you've just got so many options and being able to change the game. And that's the sort of thing that I'd be doing for me. So, yeah, I wouldn't tell Martinelli, Jason, but I'd still go for Eze and keep him and use him. So that's it from me today. Well, not for today, because I'm coming back with James Bench a little bit later on for Inside Arsenal Extra Time. And like I said, you want to get involved in that show, want us to answer any questions or any of your comments, then get down into the comments below here. Start it with Extra Time and let us know what you want us to discuss. Until then, have a great day, everyone. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.